Hey, what's up guys? So here we are back again for some more Python in BACnet Stacks playground. So what I posted on LinkedIn just the other day was just to see, real curious if OpenClaw can actually set up VOLTTRON. So I did a lot of talking. There's like a ChatGPT link here. Just can AI actually bootstrap VOLTTRON? It would be kind of fun to try it out. So in my opinion, in the prompt that I had a link for, it actually did like some pretty cool, I think, laying out the steps to actually bootstrap VOLTTRON on Linux here. These actually look pretty familiar from my testing. It's been a couple years since I actually did VOLTTRON, but there's a process if you want to set up a VOLTTRON on like an edge device like Raspberry Pi in a building or something like that. You have to work with the built-in BACnet stacks in VOLTTRON, which is actually Python based too. It's legacy Python runs this, which spits out a CSV file containing all the devices. So basically you tell it, you run with Python BACnet instance ID ranges, and it builds a CSV file. So it's not too terribly different than the same concepts we've been talking about on this YouTube channel. It's just working within the VOLTTRON framework, which can be really challenging in itself. So I thought this seemed kind of like a cool tutorial that ChatGPT pumped out after actually making it reference where all these scripts live in the VOLTTRON repository. So this is where the backpipes INI, which is a requirement for legacy backpipes, the BACnet scan.py. So you feed, if you feed in AI the source code, it can put together a real good tutorial, or model context if it has that, like model context protocol. So this is actually the next script where it would tell it to run grab multiple configs. So it's basically how you would set up BACnet in a building with the VOLTTRON framework, which involves quite a few steps to actually just even getting VOLTTRON to start polling the project and properly setting it up on the edge device. So it can get pretty complicated. So let's see if OpenClaw can do this. I'll put my money where my mouth is, so they say. So let's try it out. I think this would be really neat. So there's quite a few steps, as you can see, for just setting up a BACnet driver inside of a building, the edge device, and then you tail the logs for this. So to view that the BACnet sensors are getting printed, you're getting the present value from the sensor readings. Yeah, quite a few steps. So what I'm really curious is if I can just feed this into OpenClaw, what will it do? So I think I might just go, maybe I can just do this. Maybe just like, let's back up a step. So OpenClaw, this is this big open source project. It's pretty popular on YouTube. So this is a tutorial here for from Adafruit, which is a popular place to buy. Let me just zoom in here, to buy Raspberry Pis, gadgets on the internet for playing around with electronics. And they do have some tutorials here, even with OpenClaw. So there's some steps in Linux and how you can curl the project. And OpenClaw has this, it's like a dashboard. It almost looks like the Linux command prompt itself. And you just kind of walk through these yes/no questions and security. Just walk through the quick start, hit that button. And then I'm using, if this is probably changing every day, but I'm using OpenAI right here. And then there would be another pop-up message for OpenAI to use your OpenAI subscription, your $20 a month subscription. You can use a codex model. So you just kind of walk through here, select this, and then it'll pop open ChatGPT, and you can authenticate OpenClaw with ChatGPT subscription, which is pretty cool. Has some kind of funny looking interfaces right here. So enough about that. And then once you get OpenClaw up and running, which I am locally on my Windows computer, which I think is working fine for me. Some people run it on their own hardware. Go ahead. So this is working fine for me. As you can see here, hopefully you can see this, but this is just an existing chat that I have going, where I use it to test out my OpenFDD application. I use it to do some basic web app testing. So it's basically my web app testing assistant. So let's have it do a few other tasks. You can see right here that it's using my OpenAI Codex subscription, ChatGPT 5.4, which is working pretty well for me. So let's just have it switch gears. I'm just going to chat with it here. You can see it's just kind of like a really basic rudimentary chat. Let me just zoom in a little bit more. So let's just switch gears and try out a little experiment. Totally different than OpenFDD for now. I'm going to ask it if it can you SSH into Raspberry Pi on my test bench. It is on IP address. Let's see, so this is the Raspberry Pi. I'm just going to copy and paste this. Paste. Can you test? You can SSH into it locally. All right, so that's my prompt that I told it to do. Can you SSH into the Raspberry Pi? So eventually I want to feed it in the the ChatGPT output for how to bootstrap. Yeah, cool. Okay, so it worked. So it tested the OpenClaw running locally on my Windows computer that I'm recording this video, is SSHing into a Raspberry Pi. I could probably show it to you. It's right on my test bench. I'm just gonna pan the camera here, and it's actually let me see, this guy right here. So it's gonna SSH into this. It's just another Raspberry Pi collection of little test bench devices here. This is my OpenFDD server here, and a couple fake BACnet devices in the background, which are the Raspberry Pis. But yeah, it's going to SSH into this, and let's see if it can bootstrap VOLTTRON. It should be kind of interesting. So it's kind of the environment that I'm working on. It's just a pretend fake little building. So let's close out of that window. Okay, so let's just see if it can read this. Can you read this and try it out? Remember, this is just a test bench here with two other BACnet devices. I am also SSH'd into the Pi and would love to see if you can get this far as the ChatGPT tutorial, and feel free to do better bootstrapping of the framework and setup of BACnet driver for the VOLTTRON project. Ideally, you would have a completed VOLTTRON setup on the Pi, and how to see logs of BACnet sensor values when done. Make haste. Alright, let's just see what it does. So this is the same link here as I had in the LinkedIn. So here we go. I'm going to pull the shared tutorial first and then inspect the Pi from the machine and compare the tutorial steps to which are already installed so I can bootstrap VOLTTRON cleanly instead of blindly replaying it. The shared ChatGPT isn't exposing the actual tutorials to me, so I'm falling back to the practical route. Here, maybe I can copy paste the tutorial. How is that? Alright, so it's telling me that I can't read the link. Here, I'm just going to give it all this. Lots of text here, lots of tokens. Let's see what it does. Can you try this? Or feel free to deviate if necessary. This is the text from the ChatGPT tutorial. Paste. Alright, so it's saying I don't have the tutorial, but I do have enough access to Bootstrap from scratch. So yeah, there's nothing on it. No Git, no Java, only Python 13, which may be too new for VOLTTRON. I'm going to install the prerequisites and pick the cleanest path. Cool. Okay, so it's working. And then we can actually probably see on here for ourselves. This might be too small to see this, but this is actually, I'm actually SSH'd into the Pi through VS Code, and it does not look like I see VOLTTRON installed yet. Assuming that it would just install it here in the same directory as me. Let's see if I can just zoom in here. Zoom in. Hopefully that's a little better. Doesn't see any, I don't see anything yet. Another thing about OpenClaw is when you run OpenClaw, there's I do it through PowerShell. Where's this other PowerShell window? This is kind of like you can kind of see it thinking in the background. So like when you run OpenClaw, you do something like OpenClaw command and then gateway. That's what kind of starts OpenClaw. And then I do this OpenClaw TUI, which I think stands for like the terminal based user interface. And then there's also you can do dashboard, which is actually more of a traditional chat interface for a large language model, but I think like this this works fine for me. Alright, so I'm going to pull the tutorial. I did chat over the entire link that I had from the ChatGPT. So, okay, it's saying that there's no Python. I've got the Pi prepared and VOLTTRON repo cloned. The next step is checking the project's actual installer docs. I'm trying the cleanest supported virtual environment bootstrap on the Pi itself. Okay, so I'm just gonna say, cool, what directory on the Pi are you bootstrapping VOLTTRON? Actually, I misspelled it there. one thing to note with OpenClaw is like you do have to be a little bit conscious of, at least for OpenAI and these codex models, there's still API limits, even though it's using my subscription and it's not using like an API key, which can be really expensive if you're doing OpenClaw work with. There's still some rate limits that I have to, that OpenAI kind of holds you to. Okay, I wonder how far it's going. Oh, I can see here's VOLTTRON. So it cloned VOLTTRON in the home directory, so it's cool. It's working. It's doing things for us. Pretty neat. Okay, so VOLTTRON itself is explicit here. The current stable wants Python 3.10 and this Pi only has 3.13, so the clean path is to add Python 3.10 locally, then bootstrap VOLTTRON against it instead of fighting unsupported interpreter. All right. This could be like a moment in the video. Maybe I will just speed it up through some of this if it takes a little while. Another thing I think worth showing you guys, maybe while it's kind of thinking. So we talked about VOLTTRON a little bit, and I think that VOLTTRON is even on PyPy now. So there might be more newer ways of setting up VOLTTRON that I'm familiar with. But I think there is some documentation here, so maybe I can put this in the show notes. But yeah, pretty cool. VOLTTRON is pretty powerful. It's very hard. So if there's AI assistance to use VOLTTRON, maybe it'll be a pretty cool framework to use. And also a little background about VOLTTRON is it's been around forever. It's probably been around since well over 10 years, and it's I think it's based out of Pacific Northwest National Labs are the people that sponsor the framework. So it's been around for a long time, sponsored by the government and Department of Energy, so a lot of effort has been into making VOLTTRON work. So it's a very mature, stable framework, and with AI assistance, maybe it'll be kind of cool to use. But it is a full-blown like IoT framework here, so like has a lot of bells and whistles built into it. So it has agents that they built into the framework for controlling things inside of a building. Simulation frameworks, drivers to talk Modbus, REST API, DMP3, BACnet, whatever protocol you want. And then there's also ways to push data across the internet with VOLTTRON, kind of like MQTT. I think it uses ZMQ, zero message queue, and then another protocol called RabbitMQ. So there is ways to push data across the internet securely with VOLTTRON, and ways to put data in databases and then connect Grafana to it. So it's very powerful. It can just be very much of a learning curve to setting it up. So maybe OpenClaw would be kind of a cool way to set up VOLTTRON. So it looks like it's still working. Maybe I'll ask it. Ooh, here it goes. Okay, so OpenClaw just responded back to me that I'm waiting on Python 3.10 build to finish so I can do the real VOLTTRON bootstrap next. Oh, okay, so here it goes again. Python build is now in the painfully slow profile guided optimization path. I'm going to stop that and rebuild without enabling optimization so we can get working VOLTTRON environments faster. Cool. So as you can see, OpenClaw is kind of running pretty autonomously. some people may like this or may not like this. I think a lot of people say it raises like big security questions. So keep in mind, like, these models are they're deterministic, so they could divert off in the wrong direction or the right direction. I don't think research really knows what is the best, what'll happen here. But this is pretty cool. One other thing I think I want to show you guys, so I might actually close out of these because we finished talking about these projects. So something that this is my repository for the OpenFDD automated fault detection stack, which is maybe I'll show that to you real quick. So this is another hobby project of mine, which uses OpenFDD, which is a tool that I built for a Python-based rules engine for HVAC fault detection. And then this is, I'm building it into a full-blown automated fault detection stack. It runs Python Fast API. It's a web app under the hood. And it's basically a full-blown AFDD framework with OpenClaw contexts built inside of it. So the idea is someday with OpenClaw, you could deploy fault detection, semi-autonomously inside of a building, with the idea to make things go really fast. One thing that I found on Reddit, so I've been reading Reddit quite a bit for OpenClaw, is when I kept on running into issues of my OpenAI Codex subscription API rate limits are being hit, and I can only do about an hour's worth of work with OpenClaw before it would hit my rate limit. And I thought that was really annoying, and I almost stopped using OpenClaw because of this. But other people chatting on Reddit, they're saying to do this this as a prompt. So you prompt this right into OpenClaw itself, and whatever it does under the hood, it works, because I don't run into my OpenAI Codex issues anymore. So this model routing policy, which I'm not even sure what this is, but it's working. So it's basically, I just feed this into OpenClaw, and it just sets itself up. When analyzing test results, classify each task before prompting. So this is something I got from Reddit that other people are saying is working for them as well. For simple tasks, use a primary model, checking network requests, internet requests, missing UI, simple tasks. Use this type of model, and then complex, use thinking model. So under the hood, it's actually using a couple different models, whatever it's doing, or else you run into rate limits. Define simple, so default to simple unless the test result shows ambiguous or multi-layered behavior. Always classify first, then process. Never use the thinking model for a task that fits for the simple list. So whatever OpenClaw is doing, with all this stuff, it helps a ton. Or else, who knows, I shouldn't be making as well, how many API calls is OpenClaw doing right now to bootstrap VOLTTRON, check its progress, that it's working. It's probably making a ton behind the scenes. But I can kind of watch it here too. I keep an eye on this all the time. And then this is actually tokens, I think, for the context window of the model. So right now, with these OpenAI GPT 5.4, I think I have a context window of 272,000 tokens, and we're at 56% right now. So I think after I fill this context window, the model starts losing memory of what we're doing here. It'll just forget. Okay, so bottleneck. Right now I'm on the slow part, so it's installing Python 3.10 on the Raspberry Pi. Once that completes, I can create VOLTTRON environment, bootstrap it, which takes some time. So short answer, yes. If you want the next to reply, I can give you the cheat sheet in Markdown format while the Pi setup continues. On the Pi, I'm working out of, so it's working out of these directories, which we could actually see. So the actual VOLTTRON bootstrap target is, okay, so this is, it's setting up VOLTTRON. I think if someone wants to set up VOLTTRON in shared directories on the Raspberry Pi, you'd have to tell it to you could tell OpenClaw to bootstrap VOLTTRON in the var lib directory or var or something, some other Linux directory. So once Python 3.10 is traced, the bootstrap flow will be there from that directory, not from scripts BACnet. Cool. So I think it's doing, it's working. So on my SSH into the Pi, which I thought I was going to zoom in a little bit more. Where's my zoom? Looking for zoom. Full screen, zoom in even more. Okay, so it's this is what OpenClaw, it has bootstrapped, it has cloned the VOLTTRON repository on the Pi. And I'm kind of in this directory, so it looks like it created a Python virtual environment, and the GitHub clone is right here, so it's doing its thing. 11 minutes into this, let's just ask it, how is it going? Noodling right now, okay. Pretty cool. Maybe it's thinking. Maybe while it's doing that. So yeah, this is whatever this model routing policy, which I can put a link maybe in the show notes just to how to get this. Is I don't know why it just doesn't do this right out of the box. It kind of surprises me a little bit for the people that built OpenClaw, but it works wonders. Because I've already been using OpenClaw quite a bit this morning. Okay, so where's my what do we got here? Okay, mixed. Pi is good. I'm working in here. Current blocker, yes. Python. So right now, it's inspecting what to do next. So what I'm going to do next is inspect Python 3.10 build, retry with a leaner approach. If needed, switch to more practical 3.10 install the path instead of the full. Okay. Yeah, so it's not there yet, but the problem is isolated. The main enemy now is the Pi's Python version, not SSH or the repo. All right, so maybe I'll probably just pause this video here and then probably make 2 different videos on this YouTube just to show like how far OpenClaw got. So I actually have I've actually monitor my codex use. So this is my OpenAI subscription to ChatGPT codex, where at the moment of making this video, codex is what is supported. So this is the OpenAI models that support OpenClaw with a subscription, so I don't have to use an API key. And I kind of just monitor this a little bit. So I've pegged this 5-hour usage limit with OpenClaw before, and it says I have 33% remaining. So it resets at in about a half an hour, which is nice. yeah, so pretty cool. I've been actually really happy with the results of OpenClaw in this codex model. Like, it's working good enough for me. I haven't seen any real problems with, if it's been working for me, so I have no reason not to use it. I think other people are using Anthropic or, some other service, but it's working fine for me, so what I've been using it for. Maybe I'll show you real quick what I use OpenClaw for. In my OpenFDD AFDD stack is actually web app testing. So it's creating its own OpenFDD OpenClaw skill. So every OpenClaw instance, it keeps its brain basically in markdown format, which is a GitHub README file. So, and I have OpenClaw actually back up its own context for my OpenFDD, whatever I'm using it for. So it can be testing, modeling, evidence collector. So basically it is helping me with this hobby project. It's AI-assisted knowledge graphs, AI-assisted energy engineering, basic web app functionality tests. So I think it's awesome. It's it backs up its own context. Brick, RDF, everything we use here. So I'm hoping that here's our prompt here that we just looked at, and it even builds its own tools. So I gave OpenClaw some generic web app testing tools, and then it's kind of enhancing them. Even made itself fake Modbus devices, fake BACnet devices. Some of the other tools that I've seen, that I've had it make, tools. Maybe it removed them. So I don't know. I've been actually letting OpenClaw run autonomously and make your own tools. Just keep updating them, and I just chat with it for what my expectations are, and it's been just kind of autonomously making its own tools. I did have a few things where I was making, was using had it made a dashboard at one point in time, but yeah, maybe it actually removed some of the tools that I made. But like at one point in time, I was having it make tools in Selenium, which is a web app testing library, and Python. You can use it with Python, so it'll open up a web browser, and then maybe if this is up right now, maybe I'll show that later. But it's a tool that you can test websites with for web app testing. So getting really into the weeds of web app testing, tests all the buttons and links, and then checks the browser console that there's no error in the front end, and then also the back end. So it's basically doing real basic human web app testing, basically, is what I'm having OpenClaw do, and it's pretty good. Good enough for me. Okay, so let's just see. Let's just create an update. See what it's doing. Okay, so I'm checking the active 3.10 build status on the Pi and pulling the actual failure output so I can give you the real update instead of hand waving. How nice. Alright, so what do we got here? So I'm checking the build on the Pi. So on the Pi, I'm just going to zoom in here maybe a little bit more so we can see this really nice. Sorry guys. All right, so Python, biggest blocker is gone, current state. So it created clone the VOLTTRON repo. Tiny note, the install also warned pip3, blah, blah, blah. So I don't think that's so. So where we are done with SSH, next is create the VOLTTRON environment, bootstrap. So overall, back on track now. Okay, so I might just tell it, probably stop this video, and then I'll probably just make a new video just coming back online, just asking it to make it how to go, like prove to me that you have VOLTTRON set up, and then we can also test it in here on VS Code side that we are actually printing BACnet values on the test bench. Okay, so I'm just going to tell it one last thing before we end this video. So I'll just say, okay, thanks. Keep hard at it. Please go through with setting up VOLTTRON and get the BACnet driver functioning as well as the platform master driver in VOLTTRON for the test bench devices. There are 2 test bench devices. Learn them into the VOLTTRON master driver. I can't remember if it's the platform driver or master driver. Platform driver or platform or whatever the latest term is, and make sure that we can see logs of printed BACnet values set up. Let's see, printed BACnet pulled from the platform driver, requests to the BACnet VOLTTRON proxy agent. I think that's the right terminology. So it's very specific to VOLTTRON, but I think it should know what to do. Make me a tutorial on how to SSH into the Pi and check myself. And then I'm just going to say I iterate as necessary to get to these steps. Thanks. So this is kind of like what I do. It's not too different than what I do at night. If there's my open FDD, AFDD framework, if there's some new feature that I've been doing, I'll be, test out this new feature, really put it through its paces, investigate the pull requests, the latest changes on GitHub, and then, really validate it like it's I'm kind of treating it as like a real human web app tester. So it's, and the results are pretty good, so it's good enough. And yeah, let's just do this as our little science experiment here, and we'll come back and maybe there is a full-blown BACnet stack in VOLTTRON, doing its thing, printing all the values, or not, I don't know. Okay, but anyways, it's saying it's continuing from the Pi now with the newly installed, so it's going to try get the BACnet proxy and platform driver working against the 2 test bench devices, verify values are actually being pulled log. Then I'll turn the successful workflow into tutorial so you can SSH and follow yourself on it. I like that, on it. It says I've handed the Pi, bringing up into a focused, long-running pass, so it can keep grinding through the bootstrap, BACnet discovery, platform driver wiring, and a real how you SSH into the Pi, check out what you asked for. So pretty cool. Hoping this works. Another thing I think that just worth noting on is like what is cool about OpenClaw. What it can do is it can wake itself up and do more tasks. Like this is Cursor, which is actually the same thing as VS Code right here. It's just a fork of the VS Code IDE. But Cursor is an AI IDE for building code. So it's kind of like I chat with it. It builds stuff, and but it can't wake itself up. So I can give it tasks to do X, Y, and Z. I iterate until things pass, and then it's done. It doesn't. It even tells me that it doesn't have the capability to wake itself up and keep continuing on with some task, keep trying. That's where it's limited in just a normal coding IDE. But the people that made OpenClaw, that's where it's different. Like this guy is going to keep on trying to bootstrap an entire framework on another computer on the test bench. So okay, so like I said, I'm going to stop this video here, and then we'll come back towards the end of my workday, and then I'm just going to ask it like how to go, So, all right, we'll check back and see how well OpenClaw did. So talk to you guys in a couple hours.